Greetings, everyone. Please be seated. I'm using this mic because this one's a little too tall for me, for, for obvious reasons. I'm going to ask a little housekeeping here, asking you to make sure that your phones are turned off. I'll try to remember to do the same thing when I go sit down, make sure that that happens so we don't have those kinds of interruptions. If one or two happen, we understand, but please be respectful of that. Greetings. We are so excited to have you here. Welcome to the speaker series of the League of Women Voters of Lane County. My name is Terry Parker, and I'm the president of our local chapter. Thanks. You know, I really didn't expect that because I don't lead the league. The league leads me. So really, there are so many other people behind the scenes here who do such incredible work. We're a grassroots, nonpartisan organization founded in 1920 to help millions of women carry out their newly won responsibilities as voters. And over the past century, the League has earned a reputation for research-driven democracy, advocacy, and voter education efforts, supporting democracy. We strive to expand thoughtful participation in democracy, and I'm delighted to see so many of our members, neighbors, distinguished guests, and reporters here today. More than 200 some of you. So thank you again to the Shed and you all for hosting us here. I'd like to ask the elected officials in the room and our election workers, as well as the city administrators that we've invited to stand and please be recognized. You know who you are. Come on, Nancy, come on, all of you. These are the people that devote their work lives to supporting and encouraging engagement in democracy. And so we really thank them from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for your good work. Each year, our chapter hosts a speaker series featuring leaders behind some of the most consequential policy work affecting Lane County. Just 2 weeks ago, Secretary Reed faced the Department of Justice in federal court over the question of whether Oregon and other states are required to hand over a wide range of personally identifiable voter information. Secretary Reed had refused, citing federal overreach. Woo. Yes. And just yesterday, if you haven't read, U.S. District Court Judge Mustafa Kasabai dismissed the federal government's attempt to obtain Oregon's unredacted voter rolls. Woo-hoo! This change from a tentative to a full dismissal was based on a letter sent Saturday from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, demanding the same private data from Minnesota voters. Judge Kasabai had great concerns. There's something about the timing there, isn't there? So he had great concerns about the Trump administration's motives to access this personal information. Case dismissed. A big win for voters. You can apply, voters, apply again. I'm looking forward to hearing Secretary Reed's thoughts on this and many of the questions that you've already submitted to us. Which reminds me, if there's something you'd like to ask, please jot your questions on the 3x5 note cards that we've made available to you. Volunteers will be collecting those. I have quite a few already. And one more thing you'll want to make note of is Oregon's Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, will be our next guest speaker Tuesday, February 24th. So put that on your calendar. You can register on our website at lwvlc.org starting tomorrow. Transition. I am absolutely thrilled to have Lane County Clerk Tommy Gong with us today. He came out of retirement to start here last July. Mr. Gong has served in election administration for 22 years in California's Contra Costa County, San Luis Obispo County, and Stanislaus County. He has a list of things he does, which is absolutely amazing. He's an advisory board member for the Election Official Legal Defense Network, a member of the Bipartisan Policy Center's Task Force on Elections, and a member of the Election Workforce Advisory Council, among others. He's busy. We think he's a rock star. His work to increase public trust in election processes has won national awards, and he's an ally to the League. Most recently, in 2024, he partnered with chapters in California to help voters spot election mis- and disinformation. We're eager to build on that work with you, Tony, and look forward to strengthening our partnership with the County Clerk's Office. Please, a warm welcome for Mr. Tony Gahn. I didn't mean to rename you Tony.
Wow, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Terry, for the kind introduction and the leadership of the Lane County League of Women Voters. So the job of educating the public about the rights and responsibilities as voters is a big one, and I appreciate the League's partnership. Today's program is exciting because it gives us a chance to think about what it means in practical terms to protect those rights and to deliver secure, fair elections. I should share a personal story that my eldest son went to school at the Eastman School of Music, which is located in Rochester, New York. Does anyone know what else is in Rochester? Ice? Okay. Well, I was looking around to see like what else I can see while I was visiting him, and it turns out that the Susan B. Anthony House is in Rochester, New York. So we made a point of going there to visit and tour the home. And, it was in the early, late 1800s, early 1900s. And what was fascinating was they had some of her dresses in glass cases. And in particular, one of them that you would very, very well recognize, the one that she's in her portrait shots, was on display in the glass case. And what was amazing when I'm looking at it, the case was kind of tall. And so what they said, and I did a quick Google search, who knows how accurate Google is, but Google said that she was 5'4", 5 feet 4 inches tall. I believe the tour guide told us she was a little taller because that dress was long. And so it was really quite fascinating to see that. Anyways, I had to go see it, the home, and, kind of see the, what was the beginnings of the suffrage movement, in the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, basically. So anyhow, I had to share that story. But I am honored to introduce Secretary of State Tobias Reed as your keynote speaker. He has been bold in urging Oregonians to create a public campaign asserting that free and fair elections are our right as Americans. And he has also stepped up as a defender of state-run, I should repeat, state-run accessible elections free from partisan interference. Secretary Reed's political career started in the State House of Representatives in 2007. He spent about a decade there representing Beaverton area residents before being elected state treasurer in 2017. In 2025, he was elected Oregon's 30th Secretary of State. The role is broad, everything from registering business entities to resolving government's disputes with small businesses, but today we'll narrow in on his responsibilities as chief election official for the state. So please welcome Oregon Secretary of State, Tobias Reed.
Thank you very much. Tommy, I really appreciate the nice introduction. And I have to start by saying I'm frankly a little relieved to be able to come back to Lane County, because there was a time until Tommy's arrival that I was a little nervous about coming here. You see, our state elections director is a former Lane County clerk, and I was a little afraid that the people of Lane County were holding that against me. But I'm also, among other things, here to tell you that Lane County's loss is the state's gain, and now there is no loss because Tommy Gahn is here. So I'm glad to have you here, and I'm glad to be here with all of you. I want to say I am really thrilled to be in a room like this anytime filled with passionate and engaged Oregonians. I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters, not only for the invitation today, but for the steady, patient, and often quiet work that you do to strengthen our democracy. You all show up, you ask questions, you insist on facts, and you remind all of us that a healthy democracy runs on engaged, informed citizens who are willing to do that work. So once again, great thanks to the League of Women Voters. I am confident that we all share the belief that democracy only endures when people participate. And it is good to be in a room filled with people who understand that holding government accountable isn't just a right, it's a responsibility, and one that belongs to all of us. It is a great honor to serve as Secretary of State. And as Oregon's chief elections official, my North Star is defending your right to vote. Because in a democracy, voting is not just a civic ritual, it is how we hold government accountable. It's how we decide our future together. And it's how we make sure that everyday people have the ability to hold government accountable, to make sure that government works for them, not the other way around. And that responsibility to protect the right to vote has never been more important than it is right now. You might have noticed there has been a lot in the news lately about elections, about democracy, about who gets to vote, how votes are counted, and who gets to decide the rules of elections. You heard the clerk, state run. That's really important. This noise, I think, can be overwhelming, and a lot of it is confusing, and I'm sad to say that I think a lot of that is by design. Some of it is, let's be honest, meant to make people cynical, to make folks throw up their hands and say, why even bother? But history teaches us something really important in these moments. Democracy does not disappear overnight. It erodes slowly when people lose trust, when institutions are weakened, when lies are repeated so often they start to sound like truth. It is at these times, specifically at these times, that we have to shake off that cynicism and remind ourselves that our democracy is a living, breathing thing. And it lasts only as long as we come together and do what's necessary to keep it. Now, let's not tiptoe around it. You've already heard some of this. We all know that the freedom to vote is under attack in this country. And last summer, as you have already heard, this came into really sharp focus in Oregon when the U.S. Department of Justice showed up demanding an unredacted copy of our voter files. This would include access to Oregonians' most sensitive, private information. We'll be specific here. These are things like full driver's license numbers, partial social security numbers, full dates of birth. They didn't have the legal authority. They were not transparent about how they would use this information or how they would secure it. So my answer was definitive: not a chance. We have seen what happens when this kind of data is mishandled. And I am not about to gamble with your identity or your privacy. But we got to be real here too. This is not about election security or integrity. And other states with both Republican leaders and Democratic leaders said no too. I think it's because they saw what we saw, that this is an irresponsible attempt to strong-arm states into handing over that sensitive data that this administration thinks that they can use for their political games, whether it is targeting their political enemies or immigrant communities or trying to manipulate this data to somehow prove their election conspiracy theories. They are desperate to justify their cruelty, and they think this data will help them do it. But my oath is to you, to the people of Oregon, not to the politics of Washington, D.C. So I am not worried about the fact that they've sued us about this. And I want to offer my special thanks to the League of Women Voters for standing with us in that lawsuit. You already heard, a couple of weeks ago, we secured a massive victory with Judge Kasabay's tentative dismissal. And as you heard, he doubled down last night based on more damning developments from the U.S. Department of Justice. The federal government may well appeal the judge's dismissal, but this is a strong start, a strong precedent, and it is something to celebrate. So that lawsuit is not what keeps me up at night. What is leaving me sleepless, though, is that the federal government is walking away from real election security. And we've gone a long time without an acronym. Are you ready for an acronym here? Has anyone heard of CISA? This is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and it was critical to state election protection. They gave us intelligence briefings and real-time cyber threat alerts, physical security assessments, and incident response plans. They were our firewall against foreign interference and domestic attacks. And now, under this administration, all of that is gone. That's not just irresponsible, it is dangerous. Now, I don't imagine that I have to tell anyone in this room that democracy is fragile. You have seen it tested over decades. But something that I think too many politicians forget is that democracy is not self-sustaining. It depends on participation, on norms, on good faith, and on respect for truth. That's why the way that we do elections in Oregon by mail is not just a convenience, although it's that too. It is a safeguard. And Oregon, if you hear nothing else from me today, please hear this. Oregon is the gold standard when it comes for secure, accurate, and fair elections. Vote by mail elections ensure that every eligible Oregonian can participate, whether you're working 2 jobs in enterprise, you're dealing with limited mobility in Klamath Falls, or whether you're struggling to find childcare and make rent in Portland. It removes barriers like long lines and intimidation. When you're voting at home or voting by mail, you don't have to stand in line. You don't have to deal with intimidation. It gives voters time to read, time to think, time to reflect, time to make informed choices in a place and a way that makes sense in the busy and complicated lives we're all leading. Now let's talk about election integrity and security. These are things you know. I almost want to have a call and response section here, but you know this. Every Oregon ballot has a paper trail. Every Oregon signature is verified. Every Oregon vote is secure. This is what I like about the League of Women Voters. You created your own call and response. Thank you for that. What is more, I would say we are more secure than any other system against cyber threats. Our ballot counting machines are never, repeat, never connected to the internet. And as a former Republican Secretary of State, Dennis Richardson said famously, you can't hack paper ballots. Our results speak for themselves. Over about 20 years, I'm getting ready for an audience participation portion here, another one, a quiz question. Over about 20 years, Oregonians cast over 60 million ballots. Would anyone like to guess how many cases of fraud we've had over those 60.7 million ballots cast? Good. 38. Not 38,000, not 3,800, 38. And that is pretty easy math if you think about it. Less than 1 in a million. So when the president is calling our system fraudulent, when he attacks the very method that has made Oregon a gold standard, he's not a gold standard and a model for democracy, frankly. He is not defending integrity, he is undermining it. He's trying to sow doubt, to divide us, to make people question whether their vote and their voice matter at all. And that is not just an attack on Oregon, it's an attack on who we are as a country. In the United States, the government answers to the people, not the other way around. And our founders did not fight a revolution for us to serve more kings and strongmen. They fought for a republic, in a country where power comes from us, the people. And every vote says, this is our country and we will decide its future. Every ballot cast is a declaration of that freedom. These attacks, though, do not come in isolation. They come as local election officials are facing threats, harassment, and burnout. They come as misinformation, spreading faster than truth, is flooding social media with lies about how ballots are counted, about who's registered, and about who's eligible. They come, frankly, as public servants are being vilified simply for doing their job and following the law. In Oregon, we've had, as you know, election offices threatened. We've had ballot boxes vandalized. We've had staff harassed online and in person. And yet, they keep showing up. They keep counting. They keep serving. They keep protecting democracy. That is courage, ladies and gentlemen. That is public service. I know I've hit on a lot of challenges, but public servants give me hope. And I also want to talk about what is going right, because we need to celebrate the good as well. First, we have to celebrate that Oregon does a great job of making sure that our citizens have a say in government. We consistently have one of the highest voter turnout rates in the entire country. And that means that our elected officials and the decisions they make more accurately reflect the will of the people. Oregon elections are highly secure, fair, and accurate. We have paper ballots that are closely tracked and audited after the election. We have signature verification to make sure that the person submitting the ballot is who they say they are. And all the technology we use to track election results is publicly tested before and after the election. These are just a few of the steps that we take to make sure Oregon's elections remain the gold standard for democracy. And if we catch mistakes, we fix them. We critically examine every part of our election system to make sure that we're doing what's necessary to maintain the integrity of Oregon's elections on a regular basis. In the last year, that included applying new rigor to the Oregon motor voter system. Now, you probably remember hearing about some problems with automatic voter registration, the registrations that were processed by the DMV. Essentially, DMV made some clerical errors, and as a result, some records got forwarded for voter registration that didn't meet the qualifications. My predecessor took action right away to get those records off the books, and on day one, my team started working to make sure that we prevented errors like that from happening again. We're doing things like randomly sampling automatic voter registration files and working with the DMV to check them for errors, implementing some very basic data integrity checks, and starting regular review panels where we go to the DMV in person so we can see what's happening firsthand at the counter. That way, we can see for ourselves where there are gaps and work to fix them. We're also rewriting the rules and manuals that govern the program to tighten them up, add extra protocols, and fill in with extra safeguards. And the good news is that it's working. This last summer, an independent audit confirmed that what we're doing is improving the accuracy at DMV. We take this seriously. Appreciate that. We take it seriously, and we'll continue to take it seriously, because even though these errors never impacted an election, the details matter, especially when our elections are under attack. And these details are not the only thing we're digging into. We're working with county clerks, including Tommy Gaughan, to restart some routine maintenance of inactive voter registrations. You might have seen some noise on this online too. Inaccurate information, including famously from our friend Elon Musk. Here's what you should know, though. In addition to Oregon's list of 3 million active voters, this is really important, we have a separate list of about 800,000 inactive voters. And a voter gets moved to the inactive list anytime something happens that causes the local election official to think that that registration information is out of date. Say, for example, election mail gets returned as undeliverable. Once someone gets added to the inactive list, they don't get a ballot. They don't get a ballot. And they stay on that inactive list until they get in touch with their local elections official. So this inactive list does not impact our elections at all. And every state has a list like this. But state and federal law offers a process that we can use to move folks from inactive to canceled and essentially stop storing that data. But since 2017, Oregon has not been using that process, and that means there's a backlog of data that needs to be cleaned up. About 160,000 of those records qualify right now for cancellation, so we're moving forward with that. All of these folks can re-register if they get back in touch with their local elections official and go through that regular registration process. That is no problem. But when we restarted this process, I knew there were bad actors out there who were going to try to spin it to justify their unproven claims of fraud. And sure enough, that is exactly what's happening right now. But we are continuing to move forward with this process because it is the right thing to do, and I am not afraid to stand up to misinformation, because that's what responsible, accountable government requires. It's what it looks like. Now, speaking of what's going right, I have to talk about county clerks again. One of the real highlights of my first year in office was the chance to get around the state, and I am proud to say we visited all 36 county clerks in their counties. I met with clerks of so many different backgrounds and ideas, all of them who innovate with duct tape and determination, who adapt on the fly, clerks who really don't know the word impossible. Think about what they've done. When wildfires destroyed homes, they still got ballots to every voter. When someone torched a ballot box, they secured every vote. These are the unsung heroes of our democracy. And they need resources, they need respect, and they need relief. This burnout is real. A third of Oregon's county clerks have retired or announced plans to leave since 2021. And if you want to talk about investments with the highest possible return for democracy, invest in them. Really. Together with these heroes of democracy, we are building resilience so our elections can withstand any crisis, manufactured or real, so every eligible Oregonian can make their voice heard in every election. I'm pausing for a moment here because all these things that I've talked about, we can't do them alone. We need your help. Democracy has always depended on citizens who are willing to stand up for it. I know that everyone in this room understands the stakes for Oregon and for our country as a whole. The most powerful thing you can do when you walk out of here today is to share what you've heard and educate your fellow Americans, your fellow Oregonians at the kitchen table, community meetings, in line at the grocery store, with your neighbors and friends, because the antidote to disinformation is education. You can remind people that our system works because you have seen it. You can remind them that participation matters because you have modeled it. You can remind them that democracy isn't something that just happens. It is, as we've said, a living, breathing thing. And you know this because you've lived it as voters, as members of the League of Women Voters, as the advocates who show up to hold those of us in government accountable. So when someone says, my vote doesn't matter, you tell them about a close election in your community. When someone says, vote by mail isn't safe, you tell them how every vote is secured and tracked and signature verified. When someone says politics is broken, remind them that democracy is what we make of it and that it's worth fighting for. Look, democracy is never easy. It's never been easy. And if it were, we wouldn't have had to fight for it. We wouldn't have marched for it. We wouldn't have amended our Constitution time and time again to bring more people into its promises. Every generation inherits this fragile, remarkable thing. And every generation gets to decide whether it is strengthened or diminished on their watch. My friends, this is our moment. Not because democracy is failing, but because it's being tested. Tested by fear, by cynicism, tested by the powerful who want to weaken faith in our institutions and silence the will of the people. But the good news is our democracy doesn't belong to the loudest voice or the wealthiest person or the most powerful office. It belongs to the people who show up, who tell the truth, and who refuse to give in to apathy and despair. It belongs to you. So don't underestimate your power. Don't underestimate the impact of a conversation or a quiet act of courage. History is shaped by everyday people deciding that democracy is worth the fight. So let's leave this room today committed to something simple but powerful: to participate. Let's recommit to passing on a stronger democracy than the one we inherited. That's how we make sure the future of this country is not decided by fear, but by the people. Thank you all very much for letting me be here. I am not surprised, but I am pleased to see the thickness of the cards that you have with you. This is going to be great.
Well, I get to ask the questions.
Okay.
So here, let me make sure I'm not
Yep.
too close. I'm going to ask the questions and you get to answer them.
Very good.
Okay. In the past, the driver's license number was required to register to vote online. A recent change allows the last 4 digits of the Social Security number to be used. Why is this an important change?
This is basically putting online the process that you can use if you're registering to vote with a paper form. All the same security checks, all the same protocols are in place. County clerks run those processes, and they will be in touch if something doesn't look right. But we want to make sure that it is convenient for people who are eligible to vote and to participate for all the reasons we've talked about, all the reasons that people in this room know we are better off when more people participate.
Thank you. Would you describe and/or explain the recent changes relevant to elections in Oregon? There's an A and a B here.
I'm glad there was more specifics here.
Actually, there's an A.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
updates to the electoral count process for the nomination of presidential electors. Why is this necessary, and what will change for the average voter?
There are some proposals in the legislature, and we do have a legislator in the room too. So maybe we need to follow up with her as well. But I think this is trying to learn the lessons of what happened in past presidential elections and reduce the risk of what are called faithless electors and games being played with those commitments. So we'll follow those developments closely and weigh in where necessary. You bet.
We understand that your office is working hard on campaign finance reform.
Yes.
Can you describe what you hope to accomplish with this effort? This is one of our favorite questions.
Yeah, we could probably spend more time than anyone would like on this. We want to implement what the legislature passed. I think the legislature responded to what Oregonians want and a goal I share, which is to reduce the impact of big money in politics. That's the first step. It just can't be acceptable that the interests of donors would ever come in front of the interests of voters. But it's really hard to do all this. So this is you can stop me when I go into too much detail here. But the legislature passed this bill in 2024, and even the proponents, the most enthusiastic proponents, admitted at the end this bill is going to need more work. And I'm here to tell you it does. Because in that bill, there are contradictions. In that bill, there are pieces of statute that those same proponents disagree. They'll look at the same several words and say, that clearly means up. And someone else, no, that means down. And we are in the awkward spot of having to implement this with a very short timeline and not nearly enough in the way of resources. So our job is to call that out, to work with the legislature and ask for their help in clarifying their intent, to making sure that we have the time and the resources to do a good job of implementation, because we don't want the worst outcome would be a bad implementation that would cause this to go on that same list of things that we can all recite that didn't go well. It would cause Oregonians to lose even more faith, to say, well, they can't even get that right. So what you can do to help us is remind your legislators that we need that help. We need those clarifications, we need some resources, and we need time to do this work really well. But you can be assured that everyone on our team is absolutely committed to that, to doing that work and delivering a system that Oregonians can be proud of, that will cause more people, not less, to participate as candidates, as donors, as voters. That's how we're going to protect and improve our democracy.
I just love your questions. They're so well thought of and informed. So here's a good one. There is talk of the 2026 Oregon legislators forcing a vote in May for the ballot measure on the transportation package. Who determines which election the Citizens Initiative measure will be voted on?
This is an easy question to answer. The legislature. When the signatures were verified, if the legislature does not take action, that would appear on the next general election ballot, so that would be November. But the power to change that timing does reside with the legislature. So that's something I know they're considering, and we're in conversation now about, there are a lot of things. I'm just a rookie compared to your county clerk here, but there are a lot of things that go into the preparation of a ballot in an election. And so if they decided that they wanted to move it to May, that has real implications for our office and for all 36 county clerks. So we're in conversation to make sure that they're thinking about these things, so that if they want to move it to May or a different special election, we would have time to do all that in the most responsible and detailed, rigorous way. But the legislature is the short answer.
Please comment on ORSTAR delays. ORSTAR, ORESTAR, is candidate filing and contribution software from 2007. Can you deliver updates in time for the 28 elections?
Yeah, let's start with ORSTAR. So I'll tell you a funny story. I had an interview with the reporter during the campaign, and I thought I was being casual and she wouldn't use this quote, but she did. She said, now what about ORSTAR? The person who asked this question clearly uses ORSTAR, and I'm sure if we called them out, they would start talking about multiple tabs and all the various things that are a challenge about ORSTAR. In ORSTAR's defense, I have to say it was state of the art in 2007. So I said to this reporter, yeah, it's a problem. I mean, here's what I usually do. I put in a search term. I'll walk upstairs. I'll take the dog for a walk. I'll come back, still watch the thing spinning around. I thought it was a lighthearted joke. She used that quote. It was an accurate quote. ORSTAR is one of these things that is tied up in the campaign finance reform effort, because the details that are contemplated in that legislation require a wholly different technology platform to do all kinds of more detailed tracking and reporting that ORSTAR was not built to do and cannot do. So the short answer to the question is we will see. But again, this stuff matters, and doing technology development is hard. It's hard in the private sector and the public sector. And if we're going to do it well, we have to have the time, the rigor, the process. This is a place where I differed with my predecessor. My predecessor started that effort in-house. And when I took office, I said, this is not the core competence of the Secretary of State's office. We are not an IT company. We're not a software shop. We need to bring in external expertise. So that means going through an RFP process. That means managing contracts. That means having a great definition of what it is we're building. To mix back to the previous question about campaign finance reform, some people say, well, why can't you go faster? Why can't you be more precise about what it costs? And I sometimes say it's a little bit like being a person who wants to build their own house. Imagine if you went to the contractor and said, well, how much is our house going to cost? What's the first question the contractor's going to ask? How many bedrooms? We'd have to say, we don't know. How much? Are we building this out of brick or wood? No idea. How much? That's kind of where we are with ORSTAR and with the campaign finance system generally. So we are working hard to get those definitions in hand and to push as quickly as we responsibly can. ORSTAR is an important tool to allow people to see what's happening in campaign finance, and we're committed to making sure that it improves and meets everyone's needs.
You have a number of people who know more about ORSTAR, so we'll be watching, right?
Good.
Because of the U.S. Post Office debacle, which will make drop boxes will more drop boxes be distributed throughout the state? And I think this has to do with when the post office stamps your ballot.
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the county budgets. I would like to see the legislature do more to support elections. We ask a lot of counties, and we don't offer that much support when it comes to elections. But it is worth putting a little more context on the USPS question, because you all can help on this as well. This is the sort of the latest development in the ongoing trend of cuts at the U.S. Postal Service, and the result is that a lot of times your mail is not going to be postmarked until it reaches a processing center, which, unless you're within about 50 miles of Portland, is not going to be your local spot. So you turn in a piece of mail, it might not get postmarked for a couple of days. And that's important when it comes to things like taxes and ballots, and we can't count on that. So the number one thing you can do, if you can get yourself to a drop box, an official county drop box, do that. Then you don't have to worry about the Postal Service. The clerk will get it, and it's not a problem at all. You can still use the mail, but if you are doing that, please try to mail early. It's a little bit like going back to the future. Remember the days before the postmark, and we'd say if you're not mailing it more than like the Thursday before the Tuesday election, don't mail it. It's in that range. So mail early, and if you need to mail late, go to the post office, go up to the counter and ask them to postmark it there. They will do it if you ask, but you got to stand in line and ask, and not assume that putting it in the drop box will get you that postmark on that day. I'm getting one crowd applause from Becky here, so I appreciate that, Becky. But you all are now deputized officially as people who can help us deliver that message, because it's going to be relevant in the elections to come. Great.
Many are worried that Trump will create a situation to justify not holding the midterm election. Are there plans in place to deal with this possibility?
Yes. Look, what we need to do, every one of us, is look back over the history of this country. There have been so many things. We've had wars, we've had pandemics, we've had earthquakes, we've had everything. But you know what we have not had? We have not had an election canceled, and we are not going to. Every time we talk about that, they're going to try. I have no doubt that the president is setting up for that. But every time we remind people of the history, every time we talk about how central this is to our democracy, we build the narrative, we build the resilience, we build the expectation. So talk about that. Talk about that with anyone who is expressing a lack of confidence. We will vote in 2026, in 2028, and beyond. Absolutely.
Thank you. How you doing?
Great.
Good. What are you, this is a related question. What are you doing to ensure Oregonians the ability to continue to vote by mail?
We are defending our right. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution. Look it up. It says states run elections. You heard that earlier. Presidents don't. That's it. So we're defending that, and we're getting prepared for any kind of a disruption, whether it's a disaster of the natural variety or the ones coming out of the White House. We are prepared. We have 36 dedicated people across this state. And I go back into that for a moment. It was great getting around. This is a big state, by the way. If you haven't seen all 36 counties, do it. It's great. Clerks who I am certain, clerks who demonstrably are from counties that supported the president dramatically. Clerks who I'm sure themselves voted for the president are so heartening. They are absolutely able to separate their counties and their own preferences from what their responsibilities are. And when they see nonsensical proposals, they say it. Say, this doesn't help voter integrity. This doesn't help election security. It just makes it harder for people to vote. And people don't get into the elections business because they think elections are bad idea. They are there to protect those elections, to protect the people who are casting ballots. So we are in constant communication with those clerks. We are in constant communication with the legislature to make sure that the resources are there to deal with any disruption we might find.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody that we're coming up to Black History Month, and Black history is really tied to voter suppression. And so one of the things that we need to really be aware of is anything that has to do with suppressing votes from all of us.
Right.
So another question, as Oregon is the vote by mail gold standard, how do we get all the other states to adopt vote by mail? I'm sure you have the answer to this question.
Well, I just think it's really simple, and maybe you have this same reaction. Whenever I see news coverage of people standing in line or having to, be out in the cold or get to a specific place at a specific time, I feel like I want to not yell at them, but yell to them. You don't have to do this. I have a good-natured debate with the Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon. I have to slow down when I say that. Secretary of State Steve Simon. He claims that Minnesota has the highest voter turnout. He's wrong. He's measuring the wrong thing. He's registering the number of registered voters. We are registering the number of eligible voters. Because of our automatic voter registration policies, we have a much higher denominator. And I just think we have to start from the idea that this is better. It's more convenient for people. You don't have to get a babysitter to go vote. You don't have to give up hourly wages. You don't have to, your right to vote should not depend on your economic or social situation. And we're living that out. And people can be, I think, sincerely curious about how it works. But we have 25 years of data. We have decades of experience at how well this works, how everything you can imagine being a problem is something we can deal with. We have dealt with. And we tell this story. We help any other state that wants to do it. And we're not the only state. Remember, Colorado and Washington are doing it. Lots of other states are somewhere on that process. The next step is from the traditional is to say you can have no excuse absentee voting. And you can have permanent absentee voting. And many states are moving that direction. A few that are kind of regressing, but we keep doing our thing here. We keep talking about why it works. And all of you, I think, have a role in this too. Talk to your less advantaged friends and neighbors and other families and tell them how much you like it and how much better it is and how much more secure and how much lower cost and how much better security we have. We'll get there eventually, I'm convinced.
Do you see a future for open primaries in Oregon?
I see absolutely a question that we have to answer. It is not sustainable, in my view, to have the largest segment of the electorate left without a way to participate in a really key part of our process. And there are lots of ways that different states handle that. There are lots of options, but we absolutely need to have that discussion as a state. There are signatures being gathered now for a couple of ways to do that. And as you might expect and probably would hope of me, it's not appropriate for me to weigh in on those individually since I have a role in that process. But I think we got to figure that out. We've got to have, it's too important for 40%-ish of our electors to be able to have to say, I don't get to participate in that. We want people to vote. We want them to vote all the time. And we've got options to do that. So I know you will all be engaged in that conversation, that process, and I think that's a great thing.
League has a position on that.
Good.
So how about the future of ranked choice voting in Oregon?
It's a similar question. I think anything that's going to allow more people to vote and feel like their preferences are reflected is a good thing. But I don't think there are very many things that are a panacea, that are a silver bullet. And I will let you in on a secret. I was not disappointed that didn't pass in this last election. Not because of the substance, but because you've heard about some of the other things that we're already dealing with. And I breathed a little sigh of relief to say, okay, that's the one thing that we don't have to try to take on right now. It may come back, and that might be great. But I think the harder thing, at least as I see it in terms of priorities, is getting more people voting. And I suspect that we would have an easier time with some form of reform that would allow people to participate in the primary, even if they don't have a party affiliation. So if just me, if I were ranking the things I'd like to see answered first, I would put that primary question a bit higher than ranked choice voting.
Thank you. Is there a coalition of secretaries of states working on defending our voter rights? And what are their primary concerns?
You know, as I was driving here today, there's a conversation going on online amongst the National Association of Secretaries of State is meeting in Washington right now, at least those who are able to get there. And there's a lot of conversation because some of there's some people from the administration that are going to be speaking to this group. There's questions about what they should have to answer for. What are the things that they need to be held to account for? And I think, you know, secretaries of state are just like any other group of people. There are different backgrounds and ideas, but I think for the most part, they're all pretty well committed to making sure that the votes of the people they serve are counted and reflected. And we try to stick to that in those conversations. I'm optimistic. I've you know, some I'm closer to than others, but I have a lot of confidence in that group as a whole.
A few more, you good?
Okay. Yeah, of course.
Great. Hanging in there, everyone. The Electoral College is an acronym, according to the person who wrote this note. Is there any reason you'd encourage we keep it? And if not, is there any way you could see it going away?
There is a way that we can it can go away. When I was a state representative, I carried a bill that would have put Oregon into the National Popular Vote Compact. It didn't. We passed it in the House that year, and it failed in the Senate. Subsequently passed both houses, and Oregon is committed to that. The way it works is that once 270 electoral votes have committed to that compact, then those states would award their electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. So it's in process, and I haven't checked lately, but I think that total number of votes is nearing 200 maybe. So it's getting closer. I expect that if it does get to that 270 and is triggered to enact, there would be litigation about it. But yeah, I don't see the same kind of value in it as some others do.
How can we make, I'm sure you have an answer to this question. How can we
Set
make,
me up here.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah, I'm setting you up. How can we make sure young people's signatures are accepted on ballots? It's so rare for many to know how to handwrite. But I have to say, some of these are not really easy to read either. So
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you for that. On behalf of my 16-year-old daughter and 12-year-old son, I say thank you for that. Look, this is another public service announcement. If you are at the DMV, please do not do what so many people do when they get their bill at a restaurant and just go, Don't do that. Those are the signatures that county clerks use. Am I right, Tommy? He's nodding. He's nodding if you can't see him. Give a good signature. And I'll tell you a funny story. One clerk that I visited told me about a complaint that she got from somebody who said, "Well, when I vote, sometimes I'm angry." And the clerk had a great response. Give me the angry signature. Just be consistent. Use the one that matches. And yeah, this is the beauty of our system. I think it's such a great thing when people complain. Well, my ballot got rejected because of my signature. Isn't that great? You see our security? You still have a chance to go and cure your signature and fix it. If you feel like your signature has changed, your clerk will be glad to see you and update your signature, and it'll be fine.
What suggestions can you give to the people of Lane County to help us prevent voter intimidation or other attempts to limit our right to vote in 2026?
You know, actually, we did not set this up, but I'm really glad you asked this because I want to turn it around a little bit and ask for your suggestions. I want to make voting the fun and exciting thing to be part of. And one sort of goofy idea that I would love to figure out how we can adapt to Lane County and other places. I'm thinking about the hypothetical small town. this is a big diversion, but I got a hat recently after our last visit. I think maybe one of the coolest mascots in Oregon high school. Do you all know what the Lakeview High School mascot is? Nobody in here? They're right by the lake. Think about what's there. Who lives on the lakes? The Lakeview Honkers. So I'm imagining the ballot drop box in Lake County, the Friday night before the football game that everyone wants to go to. Let's have the pep band at the drop box. Bring your ballot as you go to the game and listen to the pep band. So the question is, what are these things in Lane County and other places that would fit, that would be fun to be, that would, we're not going to have tons of money for this, but that are things that we can make happen from a real grassroots kind of perspective. I think the answer to your question is, how do we make it fun and accessible in a place where everybody wants to be and it's safe and attractive?
Creative.
Good.
We could try to make that happen.
Let's work
All
on this
right.
together.
Do you see that California, Oregon, Washington will form our own country or join Canada?
In 1996, I had a great class in economics at Willamette taught by Tom Hibbert, and he had us read a book that whoever asked this question has no doubt read, Ecotopia by Ernest Callenbach. So, someone has imagined it. I would like to save this country first.
What can we do to support Tommy and the Lane County elections?
This is a dangerous thing for me to answer when Tommy is standing right here. I have some ideas, but Tommy, would you like to answer that question? I can vamp for a minute here while you think about it. What I've heard from other clerks is showing up, is being an observer, is understanding from a really informed position what goes on in the clerk's office. So when you hear somebody ranting and raving and making all kinds of crazy allegations, you can say, no, I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen what they do, and here's why you can trust. Does that give you an intro?
Yes, exactly. That's what I would agree to, is that it is voters' awareness. It is the public awareness of understanding what we do, all of the processes and procedures that we do that protect their vote when they participate in democracy. Once they understand that, then the veil is removed, and then they can really have trust in the process. Thank you.
It's a little bit like when I ran for the legislature, and perhaps Representative Nathanson would agree with me here, knocking on doors and getting votes is a pretty slow, inefficient way of doing things, but it is really durable. You probably remember candidates who showed up at your door. And it's the same thing when you, as a trusted person, can say from direct experience to someone who is not confident, no, I've been there and I've seen it, they will remember that. And that's a really important way of defending democracy. So thank you, Tommy.
Doing a little bit of screening of questions just so that we're not duplicating the same ones. So if you see me kind of throwing them out, I'm doing it appropriately, I hope. What are strategies for getting out the vote?
It's the same thing. It's ask your friends, ask your family. You can, if you choose to be affiliated with a party or an interest group beyond the League of Women Voters, you can get the list of who has returned their ballot and who hasn't. And I have always found, as a candidate, the most effective get out the vote strategy is to talk to someone and say, these calls stop when you return your ballot. People raise their eyebrows and go, really? That's a motivator for a lot of people. So, hey, everyone's doing it. Why aren't you?
Does Oregon have a plan to deal with federal immigrant overreach, as we have seen in Minnesota? This isn't necessarily about elections, but it's clear this is on everyone's mind.
Yeah, I guess I would answer that in two ways. One, we're fortunate to have an aggressive, I mean that in a complimentary way, Attorney General in Oregon, who is going on offense and a robust defense when possible. The other thing I think has really served us well, the one thing that fascists and dictators and despots really dislike, humor. And I have never been more proud of Oregon than with Operation Inflation. Did you know that's the name for the inflatable costumes? What fantastic work just making light of how silly so much of this is. Um, Knitting circles in front of the ice building, jazzercise classes, all of these things that, I mean, that what's more frustrating to those folks? And I'm just in awe of that. So I would say that's the other plan that all of us have a role in doing. Be safe, of course, and be smart, but calling light to the absurdity of so much of this, I think, is enormously effective.
Oregon, you just gotta.
Yeah, stick with it.
Do we have any guardrails in Oregon specifically relating to Citizens United, and any efforts in the state to use state law to ban it here?
Well, we have no. I mean, we're subject to the U.S. Constitution. This effort to reform limits in Oregon is significant, but the questioner is right. That doesn't have anything to say about the political speech being free speech. And I suspect that even if we do a flawless job in answering all the questions and implementing House Bill 4024, we're still going to see a lot of independent expenditures and so-called dark money. And until the U.S. Supreme Court deals with that, I don't know that there is a lot that we can do at the individual state level.
How does redistricting affect Oregon?
Well, so far we're following the regular schedule, the regular law, and we will get a census after the next, in 2030, and the legislature has the authority to draw those lines, both for legislative districts and for congressional districts. And I was on the redistricting committee in 2011, and it's a really interesting challenge because you have to have districts that have the same number of people. They have to be contiguous and compact. And here's the key phrase: they cannot divide communities of interest. Anyone want to define what a community of interest is? That's the challenge. It could be a city, it could be a county, be a school district, it could be a watershed, it could be a transportation shed, all of those things. And I would encourage people, even if you look at a funny shaped district, don't assume immediately that that's evidence of gerrymandering. Sometimes you got to get that X number of extra people, and the only way to do that is have some funny bulge on some side of that district. But our process has worked the last couple of times. 2011 was the first time in many years that we were able to do it in the legislature, but since then we did it again. And there are lots of different ideas about how to reform that process. But much like voting and open primaries, I don't think that there's any panacea or magic in that. It's a tough thing to draw districts. You can see that not only in legislative districts. Sometimes you see that when school districts have to redesign which students go to which schools. So we'll continue, I think, in Oregon to follow the law and to follow our process.
We had a situation locally around redistrict that we actually had a significant amount of help defeating. So it was a attempt for midterm.
Yeah.
And so again, we feel like we've kind of been through that one, and we'll continue to watchdog that one. So we're winding down here. So I have my last question. There's actually two related questions. As a ballot worker,
Yeah,
I'm going to go there.
Worker.
Deconstruction worker. Yeah, thank you. For Lane County elections, I encourage everyone to come to elections and observe the process. And I was going to mention that because it is a transparent process.
Yes.
And we have had great participation from our county clerks in terms of inviting people to be there, participate, and to see that the process truly is transparent.
Yeah.
And is this option printed in the voters pamphlet?
The option to be an observer?
To be a deconstruction worker or to come observe elections?
It is. I don't believe it. It is not printed in the state voters pamphlet because the circumstances vary quite a bit across different counties. It's been actually really interesting. Some counties will just have like a tape on the floor and say, if you're an observer, you have to stay in this box. And I have to ask, are they well behaved? Some people stay in the hall and watch on TV monitors. Others have spots that can look through the window. So there's nothing in the state voters pamphlet because it varies. I don't know about the county voters pamphlet.
it's an education piece we could
Yep.
work on, and the League of
Absolutely.
Women Voters of Lane County can assist.
Terrific.
So Dina Dawson,
Yeah, Tina Dawson.
what's
yes.
her job now and how's she doing?
She's the state elections director, and she is one of the very most important hires that I made. I've told this story a number of times. When I decided to be a candidate, I said, oh, the first thing I would do is go visit as many county clerks as I can to learn about what their job is. And it was interesting because some people responded immediately. Some people were very hesitant. I had to, assure them it's not a campaign tactic. I'm not going to be quoting anybody. I'm not taking pictures. I really want to learn what the job is and what your challenges are and so on. And the first clerk visit I got to take was to Dina Dawson as Lane County clerk, and I had such a good time. I called my chief of staff afterwards and said, I know this is just the first visit, but I think I might have found our state elections director if we win. And it's worked out, and she is great. I think all the clerks would agree that it is really important to have someone in that position who has been an elections administrator, who has been a county clerk, who knows the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and what it's like to actually run elections. It's way too easy, I think, for a person like me or anybody else to think, oh, I know how to do that. That can't be that hard. It is hard. And she is way more effective as a result of the experience she had in not only in Lane County, in Multnomah County, in Nevada, in the city of Denver. She knows things, and she is so dedicated and detailed. You all have the advantage of having seen her work up close, but the rest of the state is benefiting from it as well. And I'm really proud she's on our team.
Thank you.
We've exhausted the questions.
Give Dina our best,
I will.
please. So I have a
Absolutely.
few minutes of closing. We want to get you out on time. So I have a few presentations, so you can't leave yet. So,
All right, I'll stand over here.
okay. So thank you, everyone. I think the Secretary of State has passed our league question test. Yes. Nice job. On behalf of everyone here today, I'd like to thank our member services and speaker series team and all of the volunteers who helped deliver this program. It was an amazing piece of work, and you all did just such an incredible job to help. Thank yourselves. Thank you, Ruth. Thanks again to our partners here at the Shed, Tommy Gong, the Lane County Clerk's Office, and Secretary of State Tobias Reed and his staff. And to you, this wonderful audience. I hope to see you again Tuesday, February 24th, when we host Attorney General Dan Rayfield. Looking forward to your questions. So this is the league, after all. I have a couple of things for you. It's kind of like homework, you know? We have a lot of teachers, professors, researchers, reporters in our midst. We want to thank the Secretary of State and his executive team for their support of the Oregon student mock election. It is a way to get students experience and excited about voting. It's for grade 6 through 12, a realistic mock ballots to practice informed voting. And the materials can be dropped off at local middle and high schools. There's flyers available. Any one of you can get included and help participate in getting mock election out. Here is a packet of information for you. And then I got this one as a must-do. The League of Women Voters of Oregon recently did a recall study. And that, if you know anything about the league, we're not necessarily nimble, as my friend Linda Lynch would say, but we're thorough, you know. So the League of Women Voters of Oregon completed this 2-year study assessing the recall election process in Oregon. We did a deep dive on how recall has been used both historically and currently. We did interviews. It was an amazing piece of work initiated by the League of Women Voters of Lane County and then supported by others in the League of Women Voters of Oregon. Discussions amongst all Oregon members helped formulate our position on potential reform. We're going to have you enjoy this light, entertaining reading. Yeah, and then bear with me because I needed to do this too. we have a tradition of giving guest speakers a small token of appreciation. And so I have something for your staff. Euphoria Chocolate Company, local chocolate. Don't eat it all at once. And then I have something that I made for you in a tradition. So I grew up in the community of Astoria, Oregon, which has a strong Scandinavian immigrant history. And so even though I'm not Scandinavian, I'm a Scandinavian wannabe. And I also know that people in Minnesota have a Scandinavian history. So the yarn shops in Minnesota are creating these hats as a protest. This is a melt the hasp pattern. It's inspired by the historic use of pointed red hats by Norwegians as a form of resistance while under occupation in the 1940s. Wearing, making, or distributing them became illegal and punishable by law. There's also a paperclip, another form of resistance. I hope it is a bright reminder that you're not alone and that resistance can take many forms. Thank you for your good work on behalf of all of us.
I'll see if it fits. But thank you. That's great. Oh.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next month.